we can, provided
you to attend today's international webinar on the very topic, lessons from Chile's new constitution. First of all, I welcome respected chair of today's session, Professor Anand Kumar from Society for Communal Harmony. Respected speakers of today's session, Professor Prasenjit Biswas, professor from Northeastern Hill University, Shillong. Respected Sudhir Gandutra, a coordinator from World Humanist Forum, Asia. And he is also our co-nurturer, and we really appreciate his effort in order to organize this event for that matter. And I welcome Dr. Chakrapani ji, who is also our co-nurturer. He is a retired IS officer and a good social activist. And all the respected friends, co-nurturer of Society for Communal Harmony. And I also welcome two of our friends who will share their experience from Chile, Ms. Pia Figuera and Antonio Carvalho. So we welcome all those friends co-present here, and all the viewers who is watching from YouTube channel and Facebook channel and also Zoom platform. Let me give a brief introduction of Society for Communal Harmony. Society for Communal Harmony is a kind of initiative established in 1990 with a guidance of historian Dr. Vishwambarnath Pandey and theologian Ali Mia Nadmi Sahab. Society for Communal Harmony is dedicated to the cause of communal harmony. It aims at promoting unity and fraternity through justice, peace, and progress as enunciated in the preamble of the Constitution of India. It has taken some constructive initiatives for interfaith dialogues, awareness building among students, particularly among youth, intervention in conflicts, and relief and justice for the victim of communal violence. We invite you all to be our co-nurturer. So today is a very important topic, and we discussed with respected Sudhir Bhai, and he conceived the very idea that we should also organize some talk on Chile's revolution, because it is one of the significant and creative revolutions of today's time, and it invokes emancipatory goals such as do away from dictatorship, youth involvement in politics, challenge of neoliberal political order, recognition of indigenous people. And these are the very important ideas which are inspiring for millions of people in the world who wish to have a just social order. So first, I would like to invite Sudhir Bhai. And Sudhir Gandutra is human activist with many years of experience in the work for active nonviolence and universalistic humanism. And he's also co-nurturer of Asian Humanist World Forum. So we invite Dr. Sudhir Gandutra Sahab to share his view on the very topic.
Thank you, Randhir. I think it would be better if Professor Biswas can speak first. But anyway, let me give a brief introduction. I'm currently active with the World Humanist Forum. The idea of World Humanist Forum is to give a platform to organizations with only two conditions. One is that they believe in non-violence, and second is they don't discriminate against anybody. The idea is that all the organizations come on one platform without losing their identity. They continue with their identity, their activities, and they continue inviting others to their activities, because we believe if organizations come together, this can be a very strong force to bring a change in the society. So I take opportunity to invite all of you and the organizations to join this forum. I will share the link in the chat in a little bit of time. As I said, there are only two conditions. You need to believe in non-violence and no discrimination, and that's it, and be part of the platform. Today, this is a very important topic, we believe, not only for Chile, but also for India and the whole world. Fortunately, we have two friends with us, Pia Figuera and Antonio Carvalho from Chile, and we have a few others also like David Anderson. Pia Figuera founded Presenza.com, which is an online news agency, a news agency with the concept of news of the people, by the people, for the people. And this agency publishes news every day in 10 languages without fail, and without any advertisements, without any sponsorship, without anybody's financial pressure. And it runs 100% by volunteers. And so there are literally no expenses. The whole thing is managed by the brain, by the human power, by the human capital, as we would say. And Presenza shares its news with more than 400 partners across the world. We also have David Anderson with us, who is the current editor of Presenza. And we also have with us Antonio Carvalho, who is a long-time humanist since 1969. And he has experience of working in many countries, including over 5 years in Sri Lanka, where he worked with grassroots people and organizations, including the Sarvodaya, which is very active today, whom we all know, and we have been in the meetings with them, and activities in Russia and other places. Antonio currently lives in UK. I will be inviting Pia and Antonio to speak on this, instead of me giving an experience that I hear from them, that Pia would share her experience, live experience of Chile. And in case Pia wants to speak in between for a better expression for her first language, that is Spanish, then Antonio would help us with the translation. So I think with this introduction, I will hand over the mic back to Randhir ji and to take the proceedings forward. In case, Randhir, you think that we should have Professor Biswas speaking.
Biswas, yes.
Let's do that. And then we will invite Pia and others to speak.
Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you, Sudhir ji, and thank you so much for your kind effort. And so first I would like to invite Professor Prasenjit Biswas. Professor Prasanjit Biswas is a professor of philosophy at Northeastern Hill University, Shillong. His research interests reflect an interdisciplinary orientation that includes ethnophilosophy, ethnicity, and indigenous identities. He is also human rights activist defender, and he wrote many articles regularly, like The Hindu in Algeria, and many others important platform. So first I would like to invite Professor Prasenjit Biswas to kindly share his thought on the very topic, lessons from Chile's new constitution. Sir, over to you.
Yes. Good evening to everyone once again, especially to Dr. Randhir and Dr. Sudhir Gandutra and other guests from Chile and other participants, those who are going to take part in this immensely ingenuous kind of an exercise that we're trying to do in understanding the new process of writing a new constitution for Chile. As you know, that the Constitutional Convention began writing the new constitution in July 2021, and just a few days back, they have handed over the draft to the Chilean president. And the prevailing debate is whether various clauses of the newly drafted constitution would get 2/3 majority in the Constituent Assembly or Constituent Convention, as they call it in Chile. And there is a huge debate that is blowing up between a segment of progressive, liberal, humanist, feminist, environmentalist, indigenous thinkers, and also a variety of right forces in Chile. So there is a sharpening division here between the left and the right. And the voting pattern in terms of which the new constitution writing process began, is a very, I would say, the opinion has gone in different directions. At one level, 78% people voted for a new Chilean constitution, and 79% of the same electorate opined that those who are part of the constitution writing process shouldn't return as representatives in the would-be constituted parliament of Chile. So there seems to be a certain kind of dissociation that is envisaged, that those who will be drafting and writing, they should not take this opportunity to get themselves elected as public representatives. Now, this actually signifies an immense sense of neutrality, an immense sense of impartiality. The constitution writers must be solidly impartial and should not be guided by any post facto interest or by any vested interest after the constitution is put in place. Therefore, somebody is saying no audio. Randhir, can you please check? Am I audible, Randhir?
Audible. You are audible.
Okay, fantastic, fantastic. So the first thing that comes to my notice is that there is a very, very important surge, I would say, or a very important upsurge towards establishing an expansive, an expanded, or an expansive sense of equality. And this sense of equality is not just by mitigating the division between the rich and the poor, but it is in terms of sharing the access to natural resources, to financial resources, to economic resources, the resources that Chile has, and the kind of distributive policy framework it had since earlier, in the earlier times, is now revised in a manner that access to water, access to mineral resources, even access to banking financial resources are made more equity-centric. By calling it equity-centric, I would like to read the intent of some of the clauses that are drafted. One of the clauses very categorically states that the marginalized, the disadvantaged urban and semi-urban and rural population, all of them must have easy, unhindered access to banking, to financial institutions, to firms and institutions that are making use of natural resources. And also, they should primarily have free and direct access to potable, purified drinking water, which was withdrawn from Chile and which became a major issue in mobilizing people and their sentiment in asking for a new constitution. Therefore, one of the major thrust area is this equal access to resources so that the gap between the rich and the poor can be minimized. Now, how does one exactly draft this kind of a provision, and how this draft would facilitate formation of rules, or it would directly be implemented on the ground? The draft would indicate that kind of a possibility. How the draft is made, the open draft is not available in the public domain. except the discussions that have happened in the 5 or 6 groups, within the groups and between the groups. Some snippets of this discussion are heard in the public domain. So therefore, I'm constrained not to know too much about the internal details. But at the same time, I know what has been arrived at. But the lines of difference or the lines of agreement and disagreements are not exactly clear to me, although the draft has been prepared. And in the process of drafting, there must have been certain dissensions. Whether these dissensions, let's say, dissension towards, which has happened ultimately in the final draft of the Constitution, dissension towards public, or you can say turning the entire mining sector under the public or the state, has been dissented upon. And that didn't find a place in the final draft. That the mining sector would be entirely under the control of the state has been removed. It has been left open. Now, this is a kind of a shadow of the old Constitution, as if there is an alternative between the public and the private sector. We have seen when such an alternative was broached in the earlier Constitution, the private parties, the corporate houses, the financially rich oligarchs, they have taken a lot of advantage by depriving the ordinary people, the citizens, of their basic access to essential resources which are absolutely needed for conducting their livelihood and a decent life in Chile. Therefore, there is a shadow of the past in terms of not clearly stating that the subsidiary role of the state would now be turned into a kind of an eminent domain in which state would have a major role to play, and it would protect the interests of the ordinary citizens. Now, this remains as a kind of a hidden premise within what has been drafted and within the kind of emphasis that the Chilean drafting committee wanted to give to the public, but it hasn't found expression because of internal dissent, and dissent from the far right, from the liberal democrats of Chile, who are opposed to taking over of the resources by the state. Now, what the constitution writers have proposed, they proposed a larger amount of autonomy for a variety of regions. It's actually a model of regional autonomy without a kind of an overarching centrist power. It's very federal at the grassroots level and not at the level of the state. And to keep this kind of a federal openness possible, the idea of political parties, on whom no one trusts in Chile at this moment, is replaced by the notion of political organizations. And this is something very interesting from an Indian point of view. I would recall what Mahatma Gandhi, in the context of post-colonial India, had reminded us. He wanted that the Congress party be abolished with the attainment of Swaraj, of freedom in India. He never wanted an institutional party politics to rule the roost. Now, this popular struggle and the kind of revolution that has happened in Chile doesn't really want a kind of an old model, a democratic centralist party, or an old model liberal party where charismatic leaders and individuals take the lead. Rather, it wants to propose the idea of a political organization based on grassroots organizations, based on the number of social movements that is happening on the ground in Chile. The feminists, the eco-socialists, the gender rights activists, the environmentalists, and various other smaller collectives where labor is organized, where farmers are organized, and the variety of farmers are organized, and those whose livelihood depend on the natural resources, and these small collectivities are trying to find a voice through their representation within the constitution drafting mechanism. And I'm sure a lot of it has found expression, and it has found a lot of space within what has been drafted. Therefore, there is this opening of the Chilean resources, and it's a kind of internal opening to a variety of stakeholders, giving them distinct rights and entitlements, which are not hindered by the logic of the capital, or which are not controlled by the financial tycoons or by mafioso or mercenaries. So there's a kind of an unsettling of the old nexus and the vicious nexus that capital had formed in Chile, as part of which, there's this popular uprising, and the populist movement of writing Chilean constitution is all about accommodating the demands, the right claims of a variety of groups who are engaged in social movements in Chile. So therefore, it looks very, very prospective, liberating, and hence I just hope that as it is going to be debated in the next 2 to 3 months, clause by clause, it is the responsibility of the young president to ensure that whatever has been drafted, most of it gets 2/3, majority approval in Chilean parliament. And that has to be ensured, and that will require a little more grassroots mobilization, possibly in the case of Chile, as I understand from such a distance. I think this is my initial remarks. Dr. Gandotra and Dr. Randhir Gautam, I won't expand more than this. I think I carried my sense and the main sense of what I wanted to say, and rest could be coming in the later course of discussion. Thank you for listening to me. My gratitude to everyone.
Thank you, Professor Prasenjit Biswas, as always, very excellent in deliberation. And you really touched a very important and significant idea that needs to be, discussed for that matter, while drafting the constitution, taking account of the issues like climate crisis, racism against, for that matter, indigenous people, even non-human animal abuse for that matter. And particularly the document, had said that it would be put to a public referendum. And you also invoked that it has a new epistemology of making constitution, which is also very important and significant. So now I would like to invite Sudhir Gandutra sir to kindly proceed further, the webinar.
Friends, I will speak very briefly on a point that I think all of us living on the planet now are very fortunate of what we are witnessing in Chile. And especially those who are change makers, who are working for a change in the society, I think they need to pay a little more attention to what is happening in Chile. Professor Biswas has put things very, very well, I would say. And I'm really very happy with the kind of analysis he has made that shows that he has done a very deep study of this. Thank you, Professor Biswas, for this. And I think we will need a lot more talking to you with the people on this across India. Because what is very important from Chile that I see is to question the constitution itself. Instead of making this as a sanctum kind of thing which cannot be touched, which cannot be questioned, I think it is very important to learn to question the constitution, because from there comes all the laws and all the things which are happening in the country, what can be done, what cannot be done. And the Chileans have taken a very, very brave step. Instead of me speaking further, I would like to invite Pia Figuera to give her her view from the action, from the ground itself, her experience of activities in Chile for more than 5 decades, and particularly with what has happened in Chile, starting from dictatorship, getting into neoliberalism from there, and a whole mess for everybody in Chile, and how people have come together to win over this part and reach so far. So I invite Pia Figuera to speak. And Pia, in case you need to speak in between in Spanish for a better expression, as Antonio says, Antonio is available for the translation to English for that part. Thank you very much. Pia, please.
Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you, all of you, dear friends. Thank you for the introduction to this talk, which was wonderful, and for all your interest in our very small country, our faraway country. Chile is a country of just 17 million people, so nothing compared with India, and with a story that has had several unrests, social unrests, and difficulties. We come from a dictatorship, very long dictatorship days that were the ones that took away the democracy from Salvador Allende's president, and a socialist government that we had in the 70s. After that, after the military coup, on the year 1980, Pinochet proposed a constitution to the country that was supported with a plebiscite in which a big fraud was made, but couldn't be proved in those days. And since then, since 1980, our country is ruled by that constitution. The constitution written by 4 people, all of them militaries, and that has brought into the country a new system, a new economical system, which is neoliberalism. Since Chile was one of the vanguards in the world with the new, with the neoliberalism system, economical system, yeah? After we regained democracy, we just regained it on 1990, being in democracy, some little changes have been done to the Pinochet's constitution, but just makeup, just small changes. But the constitution itself, its structure, the subsidiary role of the state, as it was pointed out just now, was not changed at all. And a big difference started to cross the country among very, very rich people and an enormous amount of people very poor. This situation, not only economical, but also cultural poverty, was expected to be controlled by the elites and the political people in power. On the year 2019, being as president, Mr. Piñera, who is president of the extreme right, there was a very small, indeed a very, very small change in the price of the public transportation. We have a currency that is called pesos, and it was raised just a very little amount for the public transportation, 30 pesos only, which is equivalent more or less to 30 cents in dollar currency, in North American currency. So when this happened on October 2019, all the adolescents, the students from the schools, and also from the universities later, but initially only from the schools, decided not to pay anymore the transport ticket and just to go into the metro or the public buses and to stop paying for the ticket. They were saying that this unrest, this protest was due to the raise of a price that involves dignity, because you cannot go on with a life so difficult. What happened then, in 2 days, all the country was in a general social unrest and in a common protest that took the streets, took the squares, took all the main avenues of the country, all over the cities. And millions, literally millions of people went to protest day and night, one day after the other, and singing and protesting in a non-violent way, saying that the country has waken up, that Chile waken up, and that the neoliberalism couldn't go on anymore. This was very strongly manifested in non-violent ways, but since the police started repressing very hardly, they shooted the manifestors and shoot the eyes of the manifestors, becoming blind from the wounds in the eyes. And they started repressing with a very strong attitude. So it was organized by the manifestors themselves, by the protest. It was organized what was called the first row, the first line, which is a number of people taking care of all the rest as a shield to protect from the police attacks. And they put their bodies to protect the rest of the people so that everybody could go on singing and shouting and expressing the unrest without violence, and only putting their bodies as a shield, as a live shield, to receive the bullets and to receive the aggression of the police. This was a very intense and dramatic and difficult time. And we thought, all of us, we thought that with non-violence would have been very, very difficult to go on protesting, because the police was each moment more aggressive and violent and shooting everybody. So the scene that was most easily foreseen was a war, was a civil war. In that moment, all the political parties, from the extreme right to the left, all the political parties and the elites came together and in one night decided to call for an election where to ask the people if we wanted or not a new constitution. In fact, the new constitution was not one of the main issues of the social unrest. We were claiming for free education, for free health, for a lot of social demands, housing, etc., a lot of social demands, but not exactly for a new constitution. We were aware that we needed a new constitution, but was not the priority in that moment. Sorry, I see a little hand asking for the floor, but I would like to finish first and then answer if there are some questions. Okay, so in one night on November 15, there was this meeting of the political leaders who decided that we should go to an election to decide if we wanted or not a new constitution. And was the way they found to stop this, or to try to stop the social unrest, which didn't stop at all until COVID-19 on March 2020 obliged us to go back home and remain in home as a preventive way not to get contagious by COVID-19, by the pandemic. So these protests continue from October to March, all the days, every day, all around the country. Yeah. After the pandemic suspended the protest, the election was prepared, and as it was mentioned before, with a 78%, we decided that we wanted a new constitution, and we wanted it righted not by the parliament, not by a commission of experts, but by normal people elected by us. So we went to a second election to choose who would write this new project of constitution. And we elected 155 persons, with half men and half women, and with 15 places for the indigenous people that correspond in proportion to our population. So this was the first constitutional commission organizing parity of genders and with the representation of all the native peoples of our country. There has been none constitution in the world written by the same number of hands of men and women. This is the first time that parity in gender is considered for a constitution. And the indigenous people's representation also was the first time in our country that they had a place. We know that in Canada and in other places, they have been present, but in our country, they have never, ever been considered before. Yeah. Okay, so having this new constitutional commission organized, they had 1 year since July last year to this July, the 4th July they finish, last 4th July 2022, they had 1 year to write down a constitution from the beginning. And they had never had experience on that. The people that was elected were normal people, absolutely normal people, householders, employees, actors, sport people, or whatever. Yeah, there was some few lawyers and some few ex-politicians or people that had a certain experience in politics, but was just normal people in general. So they had 3 months to decide how they will do it and to write down their procedures and how they will take decisions and how they will vote. And little by little, they went on in this process and they wrote all the articles calling to the people to present initiatives, to collect signatures. If you collected 15,000 signatures for an initiative, you could present it and the assembly would consider it. So many, many people joined the signatures and presented initiatives so that the Constitution would include their initiatives. Then the text was published by a small group of people inside the Constitutional Commission that harmonized it, that organized it as a text, and it was presented as a draft for the final votation inside the Constitutional Commission, and it was approved by more than 2/3 of the votes, and it was printed and given to the president in a ceremony the 4th July that just passed. After that, the president ordered the printing of the book with the new constitution and ordered a plebiscite for the 4th September, where we will have to vote if we approve or reject this new proposal. Yeah, as you can imagine, the text transfers there all the expectations of the Chilean people, the expectations that brought to the social unrest, like, for instance, the social rights, the right to a free education. You have to notice that in Chile, education is very, very expensive nowadays. The right to a free health, which is also very, very expensive nowadays. The right for retirement, for a good retirement, the right for housing, and so on, several social rights which the neoliberal system has denied. But not only, this is also a feminist constitution, since it established the parity of gender in any ambit of their lives, in the works, not only in the jobs, but also as students, in the houses, in the schools, everywhere. It is also a text that puts nature and the problems of the damage to nature and the contamination to nature as the center. It's an ecologist constitution. And it puts, as it was said before by our Indian friend, all the natural resources except mining as a social benefit. Mining not because there was a tremendous lobby of the mining enterprises, and we don't know exactly what they did, but they were able to leave the mining industry as it is, partly private and partly from the state, but it will not be public entirely. Anyway, all the rest of the economical activities, the state will have a role, not putting the sources of economy in the hands of the state, but as a moderator, as a coordinator, the state as a regulator. Yeah. Okay, I could talk longer about the contents, but another important content is the indigenous people's priority in the right over their lands, in their ways of justice, in their culture and respect for their culture, so that they can handle their own processes. Politically, there is the end of the Senate. We have in Chile 2 chambers, deputies and Senate. The Senate disappears with this constitution. It's only the deputies remain. And there will be, if it is approved, what is called a chamber of the regions with a regional participation. Chile is a very long and narrow country that has 17 regions, different ones, and they do not participate in the taking of decisions nowadays. So the idea is to change the Senate by a chamber of the regions. And a big decentralizing process in political terms and administrative terms would take place. The thing is to know, and we will know it on September 4, if the Chilean people will approve or will reject this proposal. Of course, all the conservative forces, not only the political right, of course the political right, but also religious forces and conservative forces and violent forces also are against this text. We cannot say that it's the left the only one that is favoring this constitution, because it's not so. Many people that are not left, that are from the political center or that do not take political position, are approving this constitution. For instance, the big union of artists in Chile approved this constitution. There is another huge organization of all the people that goes around in bicycles. They approve the constitution. The young people, all the young generation approves the constitution, almost all, I don't know. There should be some exceptions, but the young people is for this new text, of course, because it's a modern, very, very modern and very useful for the future of the country. So the old people, the conservative ones, the religious ones, the rightists, and the militars, of course, are rejecting it. We don't know exactly what will happen. For the moment, the polls are giving a lot of voting for the rejection option. I do not think so. I think the acceptance will win, but we will have to see it in the polls, in the election, in the plebiscite that will take place on September 4. And if it is approved, this constitution, then the laws will have to be made in order to get it down to earth, let's say. If it is rejected, then the president has just said, the president is, as you mentioned before, a very young person, has only 36 years old. He already said that if the rejection wins as an option, then we will have to choose new people, 155 new people, to write down a second text and lose again 1.5 years on all this process. So because politically we are taking as a statement that cannot be moved the past election of 78% of the people approving a new constitution and a new way of writing it down. So if the text is rejected, we will have to go back to the same mechanism in order to choose new people to write it down. With that as a horizon, I think the majority of the people in the country will not like to go back to the same situation and write it again with people that will not have experience at all as it happened now. So we would be in the same situation. That possibly will help us to approve it definitely. So we will see what happens. As a press agency, Presenza is covering every day the opinions favorable to this text because we have stand for it. We have taken the position favorable to it, and we are fighting from our agency, from the press, to give the opportunity to everybody to know this text because it is wonderful. It is a very appropriate text for the years to come. And we are interviewing and we are publishing a lot of articles, which you may, if you are more interested on, you may find also in Presenza in English, in the case you want more information. I will leave my words up to here and pass the floor to anyone who is coordinating this wonderful activity. Thank you so much to give me this opportunity to speak about. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pia. Before we go forward, there are two interesting questions. One is, what was the role of student movement in this revolution?
Well, as I mentioned, the students were the ones that jump over the places where you have to pay your ticket for the public transportation. They started this revolution, let's call it that way. It was non-violent with all the non-violent attitudes, but the students were the ones that started it. and they were in the streets every day during 6 months. And they are also the ones that mobilize themselves to choose the new government, which is a young government, is less than 35 years old, almost all of them, except the president that is 36. So it's a very young government. And they were the ones choosing it. So they are clue for these constitutions. They are the clue actor. And in all what will happen in this country from now on, they are the clue actor. Without the young people, without the young generation, we would be stuck still in neoliberalism policies and in a very old generation that has taken the power since so long. So thanks to the students for all this very interesting process that is developing.
The second question is, how were the people elected for the constitutional writing? That is, were they representing all different sections of the society, or how?
Anyone could present as a candidate if you had certain signatures, a number of signatures, and many candidates were fighting to be elected in the election in which we had to choose them. Strangely, people prefer to choose normal citizens and not, for instance, union leaders or very known people. I have several friends who belong to unions, for instance, the teachers' unions, and they were not chosen. The normal, very normal neighbor were chosen. And of course, there was some right parties that choose their leaders, but in the rest of the political forces, I would say that very few political experts were chosen. The majority was very normal people, unable to write down a book, imagine a constitution. So it was a tremendous experience of the common sense, of the common people, of the most base grassroots, not organizations, normal people, neighbors, I would say, yeah.
So, and that means they were not selected, but they were elected in an election.
Elected, yes, elected, not selected, no.
Okay. Well, friends, I must thank Pia, and I must for giving us the view from the place where it is and how it happened. I'm sure we can be listening to Pia for a few days at a stretch for the experience that she has, but the time doesn't allow us. Perhaps in the future we will do that. But in any case, the agency that Priya runs, Prasenjit, has a special portion of articles on Chilean situation, and every day an article is written, and they are all available on prasenjit.com. I have written the address in the chat. Please take it there, and you're welcome to be part of the whole process. Thank you, Pia. And with this, let's move forward. And Randhir, please guide us for the next steps. Perhaps later I will make a small sort of synthesis of the whole thing.
Yes, we can invite Antonio also to share some of his thoughts, because he has also been. Yes, Antonio. Yes.
Thank you very much, Randhir. I am enjoying very much the conversation. And Professor Biswas, I am speaking funny because I'm coming from the dentist and they put lots of anesthetic, and so I have not much control of my jaw. I am also originally from Chile. And in fact, we knew Pia since we were fairly young, and it was the beginning of the movement of new humanism that we are part of. And since then, I have been living in different countries of the world, with the purpose of developing the base of this movement in different countries and cultures. New humanism, that is called Universalist Humanism, because it aspires to spread its message all over the world, was founded by Silo, an Argentinian, when he was fairly young, 30 years of age, and presents a philosophy of nonviolence very much along the lines of the Gandhian philosophy, if you want. And he launched a message called the healing of suffering. The healing of suffering. He wanted to speak publicly in Argentina, and he was not allowed. This was in 1969, because they have a military dictatorship. And they say, you cannot talk in the cities. If you want to talk, go and speak to the stones in the mountain. And he did that. And he went to a place called Punta de Vacas, that is about 3,000 meters near the border of Chile and Argentina, in the foots of the Mount Aconcagua, that is the tallest mountain in South America. It's almost a mythical place of enormous beauty and majesty. And there are people who have known that Silo was going to speak publicly, felt very attracted, and they came from small groups that have been forming at a grassroots level in cities of Argentina and Chile. And there were about 200, 300 people. And he launched this incredible speech. I joined the initial groups in Santiago. I was fairly young at the time. I was finishing my law studies. And I felt so impressed and so coincidental with what have been my experiences of a growing young person in South America at the time. That was a time of great social changes, big, if you want, revolutions of the youth. The culture had been changed. It's a time of the hippie movement, and in terms of music and paintings. I mean, it was all the new groups that claim fame and recognition in the world. All that was originated at the time. So it was a moment of enormous creativity, similar in many ways to what Pia is describing as the process that gave origin to this social transformation of such impact and repercussion in Chile that we can recognize as a generational phenomenon. It's amazing that for one reason or another, these people, this new generation, triggered the whole phenomena that is recognized as a social explosion in Chile. But the Constitutional Commission has an average age of 30 or something. And most of the ministers in the new government that was elected with a massive majority in Chile, I think the average of the cabinet is under 40. And so that shows that this is a generational phenomena erupting in many parts of society and probably in all the regions of the planet. But the movement, going back to the antecedents that I am mentioning, always had a vision that unless we could be known, Silo's words and message and ideas all over the world, because of the strong interconnection and integration in all the cultures and all the civilizations and the interactions that existed, we wouldn't be able to develop to reach the large majority of people. And that phenomena is more evident these days than ever before, in the sense that we are more population and we are more interconnected, and the technology has advanced at enormous leaps of speed. Probably the technological changes that impact on society are exponentially moving. So the historical tempo is changing all over the world. And that has enormous repercussions because it's advantageous for new thinking, or for a new generation that has a clear orientation to spread all over the place without limits the thinking. And the pandemic, in that sense, probably is one of the very few senses we can talk positively about that, allowed to install a new technology that is this means of communication that we have, where we are groups of people talking from different parts of the world as we were in our living room. We can see the faces, we can see the expressions, we can hear instantly what the others are thinking, etc. And that will represent an enormous possibility for a movement like ours. Fundamentally, the movement explains that by changing society and making it more just and more fair, it will not be possible to overcome violence, because the root of violence is in the consciousness of the human being. So unless we tackle the problem of violence within ourselves simultaneously, that we are working for the social transformation and to create more just and equitable societies, the problems of violence will not be overcome. And he emphasizes in that initial speech, Silo, the founder of the movement, that he recommends not to look for false solutions, for false exits to the problem of violence, because there are none. At the time, the drug was very prominent amongst the young people. They wanted really through drugs to go to imaginary worlds and illusory worlds and escape from what they didn't like. Well, the experience of the use of drugs massively everywhere in the world has shown that it creates enormous additional social problems and doesn't offer any liberation to the consciousness of the human being. But the reason why it's so important to overcome violence is because the movement, this system of thinking, is aiming at the freedom of the individual and societies, therefore. And the point is that we cannot be free if what happens to us, our destiny, our thoughts, our conditions of origin, and many other factors that impact in ourselves are not understood by our own consciousness, and we can work in accordance to change our level of consciousness. And it explains that the level of consciousness is not fixed, that the level to which most people develop is a sort of a mechanical level in which it's possible to adapt efficiently into the physical world, but it doesn't move beyond that. The only possibility is going beyond and develop the enormous potential of the human consciousness is to do it precisely intentionally, consciously, and has to be no matter an individual effort. Every human being has to play a role. And this set of ideas that, of course, in the last 50 years, Silo passed in 2010 at the age of 72 or 73 years. And he had developed during all his adult life a considerable body of doctrine and teachings and different writings that are fantastic material for communicating, for disseminating this set of ideas to others. And therefore, I dedicated most of my time to live in different countries, developing the base of this movement. First in South American countries, in Peru and in Venezuela. And after that, I went to Sri Lanka to strengthen the actions that were taking place in India, where we have people living there for a few years before. And after that, I went to Australia, because when the internal conflicts, the racial conflicts started in Sri Lanka, I went to live in Australia. And after that, I have been occupying other functions within the movement, living in Europe and very much in relation to Russia at the times of perestroika. So it has been an interesting jumping from place to place. But I didn't have the chance, for example, to experience firsthand the process of Chile. That's why I am a bit of a foreigner when I look at particularities. But at the moment, I am helping the actions of Sudhir to develop a regional forum on universal humanism that we have placed in our calendars for the month of November of this year. Will be done electronically like that, so we don't need to mobilize large numbers of people from one place to another. That is very expensive and unpredictable, because it's possible that we have other variants of the virus. And therefore, it's almost certain that we can run this forum. And along the lines of what Pia has mentioned, that there are fundamental topics and ideals in the Constitution of Chile, other topics, the themes the theme areas that we want to consider in the forum in the regions. First in Asia, then we'll organize another one in Africa, and we have had before in Latin America and also in Europe. And we are aiming at establishing a Universalist Humanist Forum on a world scale the following year that will be permanent. So from there, we aim at disseminating the fundamental ideas and objectives of humanism that aspires to overcoming violence in all its forms and the creation of a universal human nation. When we talk of universal human nation, we are not saying that we are going to create anything. How can a few individuals create a nation? We are going to support that orientation because we think that for life to continue evolving and progressing in the world, we need to think like one. We need to feel no matter what could be cultural differences, age difference, race differences, gender difference, etc. We are human beings and we have so much in common that unless we work very closely together, if there is no progress for all, there is no progress for anyone. That is again the principle there. And we will be very happy to invite you with more time to share with you what are the programs that we envisage for that event that probably will take 2 or 3 days towards the last week of November. And that we are going to perhaps join forces since we share so many similar ideas and objectives in the months and years to come. Thank you very much for your attention, and please continue with the program.
Thank you, Antonio.
Randhir, can I just have a little comment on what Antonio has said? I'll take a minute only, because he was talking of a philosopher, whom we study in India, but not so many of us study. He's talking of Mario Luis Rodriguez Cobos, mononamed as Silo. And I teach phenomenology, and Silo is a phenomenologist, Antonio had so nicely put his ideas about intentionality, his ideas about perception, the human being, and the point that comes out is that how human beings can form solidarity. Is it an intentional solidarity, or it's a solidarity which is based on a shared sense of spirituality, a shared sense of empathy, a shared connectedness that Antonio so nicely expounded here. So how do we politically translate all that Silo had said remains a question, which I keep for Antonio. He may not answer now. We will have to have the longer conversation on Silo. But it's so nice to hear Silo from him. And we teach Silo in our philosophy course. I'm so thankful to Antonio. Thanks again. Yeah.
So you have explained it so well and so precisely and in such complete way that absolutely there is nothing else that I could say about it. But it's exactly the positioning of Silo thinking within the philosophy of basically the Western countries is within phenomenology and is an existential philosophy in the sense that the source of it is not a teaching, is not a dogma, but is the human experience itself that we have to learn to observe, discover, and interpret in order to guide our lives. Because when doing that, we wake up as human beings to all the incredible potential that we have, because we are semi-divine beings. But I mean, we never develop nearly that potential. So we have to take advantage of the great guides, and we recognize Silo as one of them, contemporary of this time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Antonio, for a nice delivery.
Thank you, Dr. Biswas, for touching that. It's so nice to know that you have been studying Silo. I think it's time we meet very soon. Friends, I will just take a minute to conclude a couple of points that come out of what Antonio and Pia has spoken. It's very important to know that young people can bring a change. It's very important to know that a few people can mobilize the change, and any of the social issues happening in the society could become the trigger point of a big change. And it's very important to know that as a philosophy, as a mind, Gandhi has traveled all over the world. Look, people in Chile, which is far, if you look at the map horizontally, you will find Chile right on the leftmost corner, like Kerala. When you look at South America, it's like Kerala on the left side, a very long, thin country. And people have done this change through non-violence. So young people, non-violence and working for change is a crucial component that comes forward. And as Antonio cautions us, quoting Silo, for a social change to happen, we need to overcome violence from within us. And for that, I want to give you a very good news. I put it like this. For example, Buddha, a great personality. Gandhi, a great personality. And we can look at it so many people. But unfortunately, I don't know for what reasons, none of them could leave the process of becoming that. How to become Gandhi, how to become Buddha, how to become whatever names that we can take forward. Here, the good news I have is that Silo has given this process of how to raise our level of consciousness and become a great, or we call it true human being. And the process is available in writing, free of cost, on our website, to be taken and used, even misused if you like, without any obligations. This is a new thing for our new world. In future, we will take it forward. We are very happy that you have given your time in this meeting to hear all this. I am thankful to Professor Anand Kumar, Randhir, and the organization.
But we have some question, and if you can,
Yeah. I'm thankful to the Society for Communal Harmony that has brought us together. And this is an opportunity where we learn from each other and we take the whole thing forward. These are not closing remarks. I just wanted to conclude a few things. But yes, we can take up the questions, we can take the program ahead. And Randhir is the boss for that. Please, Randhir.
Thank you. It's your generosity. And I request all participants who want to ask any question, please indicate me in the chat box. First, we will see some question. There is a question in the chat box by one student asking, is there any way to find the answer of limitation of representative democracy in Chile experiment? Because it's a perennial dilemma for representative democracy, because 10% people sometimes become minority for all the time. They don't have any representation in the. So is there any way or any discussion around this issue in Chile? If Antonio sir wants to say something. Yes, please unmute your mic.
Sorry, I think Pia is the person to consult about this because she knows very closely.
Is she there in the meeting? So I request Pia Figuera to kindly share her thought. Yes.
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 Sorry.
Yes. There is a question by one of our students. He's asking about, is there any way to find the answer of limitation of representative democracy? Because 10% people cannot have their representative in this electoral democracy sometime, So
I don't quite understand the question, sorry, but what is exactly the question? Regarding representative democracy, no?
Yes. Suppose in India,
Can you state?
Yes, we have only 20% minority. They don't have even a single parliament member, right?
Yes.
Because they can't
right.
have their representative in this electoral form. So is there any discussion around, because this is a new Chile constitution, and is there any possibility of finding this answer?
during many, many years, it happened the same here, and we didn't had the possibility to introduce the minorities into the parliament. But during Bachelet's government, that means 6 years ago, a reform was done to the electoral law that allowed the small parties also to run for their representatives to be elected. So you don't need a constitutional change, you just need a political change and the will to pass a law that will modify the percentage that you need to be elected. Yeah, in Chile, you can be elected with small percentage now. That is why several young people was able to get into the parliament and constitute this new force that is called Ample Front, which is a new front of people that is younger than 35 years old. But that was just a political reform. You don't need a constitutional reform for that. I don't know if it is the correct answer for your question. I hope so.
Thank you. So I would request respected Chakrapani sir to kindly share some of his thoughts, maybe 3 to 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry my video has some problems, but I'm sure I'm being heard.
Yes.
I learned quite a few things from this very interesting, very informative presentations. I think one point has been raised about Gandhi not being able to evolve a method or institutionalize the process. Probably we may like to look at the number of institutions in the shape of ashrams that he set up, where I think he wanted to follow all his friends and the supporters a certain way of life. The ashrams that he set up in South Africa, Phoenix, Tolstoy, and Sevagram, and Sabarmati. I think these symbolize the kind of values that he stood for. Probably we need to take this forward in terms of speaking of to children, in terms of communicating with youth, etc. Unfortunately, any constitution is not able to spell out clearly the manner in which an immediate remedy is available in case the institutions or the individuals adorning these institutions go wrong. I think somebody was talking about the representation, the manner in which people can be made to account for. They'll have to wait for the duration of the parliament or duration of the house. So I think this is one issue. So the representative institutions, I'm glad that Chile has drafted a constitution which consists of, it's virtually a constituent assembly of very common people. It's a great transformation and a great step forward. So I think the point even then is, if the persons selected are there for a period of time, how do we exercise the checks and balances, given the fact that we have today a digital or an IT revolution which can bring about certain amount of accountability instantaneously. So I think these are issues, probably, I don't know whether it finds a place in the Chilean constitution, whether the endorsement of a particular important step, either at the national level or at the local level, whether they have also follow a policy of local bodies, like we have a 3-tier structure, the federal, the state, and the local governments. How are they integrated? I don't know whether the constitution says something, I would certainly like to be enlightened about them from the friends from Chile and those who are familiar with that. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Wonderful presentation, ma'am.
Thank you, Chakrapani sir. Any other friend would like to intervene or for that matter ask any question? Yes, Asutosh ji, I can see he is continuously watching. So if you have some question or comment for that, yeah.
No, I had asked one question, but now that you have given me an opportunity, my question, the same political formations would once again gain an upper hand if the process of electoral funding is not changed. So I'm not sure what is the provision for electoral funding in the new constitution. And I would like to know a little.
Before this question is answered by anybody, I'm sure many others would have similar questions about the new proposed constitution of Chile. I would like you to visit presenza.com and look at the articles, and you would also somewhere get the copy of the new constitution. Please have a look at that, because in this brief meeting, it will not be feasible to answer all the questions. But it will be very interesting that we have a look at the draft constitution for ourselves and go into it and see the details. Anyway, this question, if Pia or somebody knows the answer, please let us know.
No, what comes to my mind is that if you need very specific answers and you do not find them in the Presenza articles, we could organize another chat like this one with a political expert or a deputy or something like that, more detailed on specific articles. From my point of view, my task is to raise the consciousness of nonviolence, which this constitution raises. I mean, this constitution is a nonviolent constitution. That's why, for me, it's so important, because it's a new way of looking at life. It's a new way of standing for the environment, for the parity of genders, for the indigenous peoples, for the rights of every human being since the moment that that human being is born until the moment in which he or she dies. So, but politically and administratively, in terms of state and the different levels of the state and the different powers of the democratic state, maybe we could organize, since there is time until September 4, another roundtable like this one with Mr. Hirsch from the Chamber of Deputies or whoever. There are so many other normal people who wrote the Constitution that knows about it. And we could ask one of the English speakers to come over and explain it to you, if there is enough interest, and if you do not find the articles explaining already that in Presenza. Yeah.
Thank you. We are also joined by two of our mentors, Professor Anand and Professor Anand Kumar. So first, I would like to invite Professor Anand Kumar Giri to kindly share his view.
And I take the opportunity, sorry to say goodbye, because I have now at midday is here, it's almost midday here, I have another chat and another presentation which I cannot miss. I have to be there. So
thank you.
I thank you again for all the kind invitation and all your attendance, and hope that this moment will finish in the best way. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes. May I request Professor Anand Kumar? He's our chair. So I think we can summarize the whole meeting. he is taking some time. So any friend would like to ask anything, any question, comment?
Friends, it is a great opportunity for all of us to go beyond the continents and get inspired by this great experiment in the power of people's consciousness and people's solidarity through non-violence. We have been knowing about the tragedy of Chile since the killing of Allende by international forces. But the way Chile has recovered is today taught to us by Antonio, Pia, Prasenjit, and Sudhir Gandutra. It is a good offer that we should have one more discussion about Chile's story, because at least in South Asia, we have more stories of failures than successes. Therefore, in this time of near darkness, there is a lamp giving us light all the way from Chile. Secondly, the story narrated by all of you about the impact of silo over a period of half a century. He started speaking to mountains, and now the mountains have moved and they have transformed themselves into millions of people. This gives us confidence in power of truth and rationality. If you are reasonable, it may take time, but reason cannot be defeated by brute force. We have been listening to all of them for last hour and a half, and this is a good turning point for all of us, that Sudhir ji may provide us another opportunity as it is suggested in September, because so far we were listening to people from different parts of the world about Indian crisis. Today we got to know about human crisis and the way out. And the way out is, first of all, dreaming of a change, and second, to work for it, and third, to believe in power of people rather than power of guns and bullets. Yes, as it is, Indians will be very interested to know from friends like Pia and Antonio and Prasenjit, Biswas and Sudhir Gandutra ji about the role of money power, because Chile was in the grip of these global corporations and they were not letting it go. How did it happen? Second, in times of dictatorship, criminals emerged, criminal networks, criminal gangs. How the friends in Chile were able to overcome the power of these lawless gangs who align with people in power. They create a nexus which we call criminalization of politics and politicization of crime. So without holding you more, I thank on behalf of Society for Communal Harmony our long-standing friend Sudhir Gandutra ji, and through him we got connected with Prasenjit Biswas, our own Indian expert all the way from Nehu. Then Antonio, who is a global citizen, wandering here, there and everywhere in search of light and spreading light. Thank you, Antonio. And of course, Pia, who is meeting us from the core of the new solution called the Chilean success story. I thank Randhir, who did not give up, because today was a very bad day for Chakrapani ji and me and many others to get connected through internet because of rains and many other unexpected technical problems. But Randhir is symbol of new confidence that if you want, you can do it. Thank you, dear Randhir, and thank you all.
Thank
Thank you,
so much.
Anand, for your very kind words. And
Hello, Sudhir.
we can have further sessions on this.
Professor
We can
Yogendra
plan
ji,
them. We can plan
wants
them
to ask-
together
Hello.
with Randhir and take it forward. Yes.
Yes, Professor Yogendraji, please.
Yes. Thank you, friends. You see, we have got motivated. You see, I am there in the Humanist movement since 1985, working in Haryana. And with the Chilean movement, our confidence has again revived that non-violence works. What we studied about Gandhi and Gandhi's movements, now it's a live example that the young generation can work with non-violence and we can succeed with non-violence. And second, very important lesson we have learned that the constitution is dynamic, it's not static. That is also a new topic of debate world around, that we are not bound to follow the constitution, but constitution must be people oriented. I think these two important lessons we have learned, and by following the philosophy of Shillong and working on internal violence and external violence all together, personality development, individual development, and society, they go hand in hand, not one after the other. And I think we will achieve what we have been thinking and working for the last 50 years through humanist movement. And universal humanist nation is going to be a dream, and it will come true. That's my confidence now. Thank you, friends.
Thank you, Yogendraji. So with this word, on behalf of Society for Communal Harmony, thank all our respected participants who participated all the way from Chile, respected Pia Figuera and Antonio Carvalho. And how can I forget Sudhirji? He conceived the idea that we need to discuss and we need to talk about relations from Chile. And I really very thankful and grateful to my friend, Professor Prasenjit Biswas, sir, our mentor, Professor Anand and Anand Kumar, sir. So, and all the respected participants who participated with their questions. Thank you so much. So we will soon organize one talk on the existential crisis and their political social solutions. So the question of money, power, and all criminalization of politics. So we will also discuss these issues with the help of Sudhirji. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, all the viewers who watch our program from YouTube channel and Facebook page. Thank you so much for your kind support and participation. We look forward. Thank you.